Well, hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. I've never, to this date, seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off in its entirety until this video. And even though, like so many examples of films that I have talked about in this project, it has so infiltrated the zeitgeist that it feels sometimes like I've seen it. There is that sense of going in thinking, okay, can this film impress me in any way? Considering it is, it's what I talked about when it came to Citizen Kane and the problem that when something is so culturally influential, particularly of a certain era, and so many films that came after were influenced by its style, by its tone, is there anything, when you go back to that original piece, will you find it almost derivative and cliched because it is the founder of these concepts, but you're retroactively looking at it last? And so that was my concern with Ferris Bueller, because Ferris Bueller is sort of up there with films like that and Risky Business and just as quintessential, or Back to the Future, as quintessential 80s films that have a certain tone and style that really coined the culture of that era, whether they were influenced by it or they influenced it. That when you think back to them, you think, well, if you think 80s, you're thinking, when you're thinking 80s youth culture, you're thinking something along the lines of Ferris Bueller. Again, sorry to caveat that as in 80s American youth culture, I suppose. But it's funny going in, because actually, and this is what I said with Citizen Kane, and it's what I've said with several of the films that would be under this category, just because it's founded it, and just because so many films have derived concepts from it, doesn't necessarily take away from its own sort of defined brilliance, because Ferris Bueller's Day Off is... there's something about it that so stands out and shines and represents something, even for someone who wasn't alive or born in the 80s, and someone who wasn't influenced by 80s culture in that way. You'll find something in it. It very much feeds into the theme that I seem to be going through recently about a youthful rebellion, where there's something about it that appeals to almost the quintessential youthful sense of rebellion. The dislike of school, the desire for freedom, the desire for the best day ever. And there is also a sense of melancholy to it. I'll extrapolate on that shortly, but, there's something about it that's universal that I think the reason people would be influenced by it is because it appeals to so many sensibilities. I don't want to say it's Matthew Broderick's best film, because Matthew Broderick has had a incredibly long and distinguished career in film and theatre and etc. etc. But I don't know. There's when someone hits a quality out the gate, it's very difficult, because I suppose they spend the rest of their career having to live up to essentially succeeding on the first try. And Ferris Bueller is one of the best characters Matthew Broderick has ever played. There's something about him that's just so easygoing, and it appeals to the thing where Ferris Bueller isn't the quintessential cool guy. He isn't sort of speaking for the underdog. He's almost sort of that character that fits in every category. Even in the context of the film, they say he is a friend to everyone. There are no matter what category of kid group they like Ferris Bueller. He is the everyman's favourite man. And so, in that respect, we can all, his sort of laid-back, easygoing, his desire for freedom is not a desire because he hates the school system. It is as simple as impulse-driven. It is that he requires a good day. And so therefore he will achieve that by any means necessary. Of course, this feeds into the problem with Ferris Bueller, which is Ferris Bueller is so I don't want to say insurmountable, but he so hits all of these sort of aspects of being the person who everyone sort of can see themselves in, this sort of insurmountable genius character who outsmarts parents and teachers and deans and all of this, and so has a fervour for life and seems to just knock everything out the park, that there is something of almost the and I can't think of anything else to describe it, but sort of the messianic of him. And that's the trouble in terms of character type, which is he's not appealing because he is very much a Neo in the Matrix sequels, where if he is perfect and all these things work out for him, where does his arc come from? Where does his struggle? Because he seems to just succeed. And of course, that then feeds into the idea that Ferris is not your protagonist, that Cameron is your protagonist, because Cameron is the one who has the arc. Cameron is the one who has the journey and the struggle, and you get that sense of, like, if Ferris is the friend to everyman, Cameron is the everyman. And of course, the nature of this film is there are so many interpretations of the Ferris-Cameron-Sloane relationship, where you have these three, perfect team of people, and even and it makes me question even things like, did this feed into the fact that it's like, there's something about three young characters working together, 2 male, 1 female, that seems to come up a lot in culture. And I don't know why that specific combination seems to work so well. But of course, you go all the way to something like Harry Potter or the BBC series Being Human. You get that sense of the three works, or even with Doctor Who, with the 11th Doctor, Amy and Rory. There's something about that sort of triad that seems to just work so well. And of course, when it comes to that, you have the question of interpretation and ways in which Ferris Bueller's Day Off can be read. The idea that I'm sure I haven't plumbed the depths of what interpretations you can make of the film, but the obvious ones, of course, include things like the fact that Ferris doesn't exist and he's a Tyler Durden for Cameron, and it actually is Cameron and Ferris are one person, and Cameron has manifested Ferris, Tyler Durden style. Sure, it's plausible. I don't love it as a theory because I think it takes away from individual autonomy and sort of undermines the story in some respects. But I can see it. I can see where someone would get that interpretation from. Of course, with the triad, you get that sense of sort of the id, the ego, and the super ego. If you're looking at it from a perspective of, not interpreting it as a literal, as a text, but you're looking at sort of the analysis of it, and the idea that the triad work like that so well because they represent three parts of a whole, and that they need each other because they balance each other out. That, Ferris is so ego, he's so, instinct and impulse, that he needs Cameron's sort of sense of doubt and uncertainty, and Sloane then sort of balances them out so they don't end up killing each other. The three work well together, and then and you can keep interpreting again and again and again and turning it over. But the fact that this sort of almost silly, youth-filled comedy that could easily be just dismissed as, it's just a fun film, allows for such interpretation, shows a care and consideration within script and text. And this film is all about script. It's all about, not to undermine directing and cinematography and performance, but the nature of the text itself and the use of language, the way that, it requires Matthew Broderick to give such a good performance and delivery. But there's just something about the comedy and the style of it. It is just brilliant. And as I say, that brilliance allows for greater meaning because it shows a sense of humour, but also deeper understanding. As I say, people could watch this film and just say, oh, it is a fun, story of rebellion and freedom and, just a simple desire to want to have a good day. But then you sort of have that, and you get that sense with that character, that it's about sort of the ways in which you can upturn the system, and that Ferris is teaching us as an audience ways in which that we're not trying, he's not trying to be bad. He is just simply trying to enjoy himself while he can, and that's where the melancholy interpretation comes in, where you get that sense of, the story is all about success and triumph and overcoming like institutions with Dean Rooney, and the fact that he, you have this sort of these opposing forces, and yet it's about being able to do things like dance at a whatever they call them, the carnival type events, and sneak into restaurants and all of that type of thing. But there is a sense of melancholy to it that very much feeds into. I was recently watching a video on the Wonder Years, and I was never a big Wonder Years person, but there's something about that particular time period, and I wonder if it also feeds into Back to the Future, where there's almost a sense of the writers and creatives of that time have this strange melancholy to them, where there is a sense of reflectiveness. And I don't know if it's sort of 80s writers reflecting on 50s like Grease or Back to the Future, or whether, I don't know, the 80s, 90s transition, there was just something about it. But The Wonder Years definitely is full of melancholy, even though it's a fun, light-hearted sitcom about, it's not even a sitcom, it's a comedy drama about coming of age. And there was something about it that made me think about Ferris Bueller, and the idea that Ferris, every now and then, will sort of reflectively refer to the fact that this is the end of their time, that this particular period in their life, and that one of the reasons he wants this day is because this is one of the last chances that him, Sloane, and Cameron will have together before they go off their separate ways. And there's just this tiny sliver of melancholy to it. The idea that, like, a youthful sense of freedom is coming to an end because, and that he wants this great day because this might be the last time he has a day like this in this style, because this is the end of youth. And it was interesting seeing that, because it's so minuscule. It's such a minuscule sort of subtext. But I don't know, I cottoned onto it, and it just made me think about, like I say, that sense of the end of youth, the sort of reflective sense of transition, the end of friendship, the end of a certain era. And I think there is something about that exists within that style, that era of writing and storytelling. And I would love to sort of consider that more in other texts. But yeah, this is such a great film, and the comedy of it. I mean, I haven't even talked about the comedy. It's just because it is just on the paper, and it's fantastic. It is, even minor characters. You have the secretary and the dean, and their sort of back and forth is very funny. You have just moments with characters. It's just so filled with a sense of humour and light and fun. I don't know. It is I am astounded how good this is as a comedy and how timeless it is. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you liked this video, hit the like button, comment below, and share the video, because this all helped me in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to get notifications for when new videos are uploaded. Check out my back catalogue of over 250 videos, and follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I tweet about TV shows and films, and I share these videos once they're uploaded to YouTube, either the day of or the day after. Thank you for joining me. Take care.